Sync clap.
Hello.
It doesn't pick up your clap? No.
Damn. Well,
Kale, why don't you, I'll introduce you, Case Snicket, Kale. Explain to
yeah,
us
it's me.
how we got to this point that we are here.
Yes. I went to a consignment store while visiting a family, and I found a box set of series of unfortunate events books for like $30, which is a
Great deal.
ridiculously low amount of money to find these books for. And I bought it, and I was bragging about it, and we decided to do a little book club, a little summer reading.
Mm-hmm. I'm mine.
I have mine.
Oh, that's such cool art.
I know it's like a special edition print, so
Oh, oh, that's,
mm,
and for $30?
for $30,
Mm.
baby. It
It's, you
was
know what?
very nice.
So cool. Man, I'm
I'm
envious, even
jazzed.
though I have like the hardcover set, so like it's
Mhm.
got like
Use
the
your
cool
paperback.
pages. Yeah. Like, oh hey, let me just bring the book out of frame real quick. Oh, bring it out of the video. You can just give it a little feel
Uh-huh.
right there, but yeah. That's the only thing I
For
like.
our,
I like the like
I think
corrugated
that's a very
edges.
cool, yeah, that's a very cool like aesthetic to the book.
hmm I like the way it feels in my hands. The bad
hmm
beginning.
Is it good weight?
Mhm.
Excellent.
Perfect. But yeah, so I don't know. I just thought it'd be really fun. I didn't think we'd actually do it. Um,
Yeah.
and then I was like, no, like we really need to do it. But also, like I've been struggling with tasks lately. A lot of growth, but a lot of
hmm
like because I've been struggling, I've been having to like figure shit out, and I just been like busy and not able to just dedicate the time. And like I absolutely could read the book in one day. I read the second half of the
Right.
book in about an hour and a half. Like it's not too bad.
These are short books
hmm
written for children, but
They do get longer. They do get like
they
actually
do
good.
right. It's like book 10, I think, starts. It
Yeah,
gets meaty.
yeah. They start getting some girth.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
I
some
love a
real
girthy
heft.
book.
Nice
Yeah.
little edge right along the spine right there. Just
A curvaceous little book.
yeah.
Yeah.
Upload PDF. I had a lot of uh nostalgic takes on it from like remember being a
Yeah.
kid reading it. I had a lot of
Me
interesting
too.
takes as an adult.
I I remember these books not being nearly as sad as they like purported to be, and then reading it again, I was like, oh, this like
They
this is hitting me a lot different. So I guess I just hadn't developed empathy yet when I was
Mm-mm.
however old reading these as a kid.
I don't think that's the case.
So
Sorry.
okay, we can bash 8-year-old Kale here.
No. I understand that, but like what I'm saying is like I don't think it's that you didn't have empathy. I think that like I just wanted to know what happened next. Like I just wanted to have hope in them. Like it didn't matter.
hmm
I was still believing in them because I was also a kid
Right.
who dealt with shitty, family shit.
Yeah.
And like,
It's circumstances,
yeah,
events.
did he plan on like kids getting cracked on this and then like coming back to it in 20 years?
Mhm.
Because that's what I'm
That was
doing.
one of the notes that I took was like these kids are so young, like when the books first start.
hmm
And that was hitting me a lot more as I was reading it when it's like this is a 14-year-old child that's like the oldest of them of the
hmm
three children is the oldest is 14 and like I was like like when you're that age or younger you're like yeah that's an age that's
Yeah.
maturity and it's like no I also I think a lot of like talking about having hope in the kids. I think
hmm
the narrator like plays into that like really interesting. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about. Like it's such a weird experience because the Baudelaire children don't know that like it's only going to
Oh
get worse
yeah.
from here.
hmm
But the book literally opens with like this is a sad book, no happy beginnings, no happy endings, very few
Nope.
happy things in between.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's very much of the author of the books is a character in the universe of the
Yes.
books. which is a wild concept I didn't know how to explain as a kid.
Right. And
And
like
yeah.
literally every book ends with like a letter to the editor being like, this is what the next book will be like. And it's like the dedication is part the story, like the summary, the foreword, like
Mhm.
so much of the like yeah, the author's a character and that's weird.
Yeah, like it is weird. It's character is like all this stuff happened long ago. Like he's not actively interacting with anything. And I
Hmm.
think it's like I want to say it's later on in the series you start to catch on that like once you start to know names and start recognizing people that are like you can like go back and be like you fucker. Like you
Yeah.
also you
And
just like die
you got
hard
your
simp.
little you got your little fingies and all the pies. You're messing around. You're doing
Mhm.
stuff.
What felt really nice is that like these books are written at a pace that I think at. Like,
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, all right, and they're gonna go talk to Mr. Poe. And then I turn the page and it's like, so they went and talked to Mr. Poe. And I'm like, this is
There's no
amazing.
fucking around.
I'm like, they know what's up. They know what's up.
there's no like we got in the car and we drove and yada yada. It's like
Yeah, you were
no.
sad in the car. I know. We know. We get it. You don't gotta beat us over the
Get
head with
it, you're
it.
sad. You wish your parents hadn't died. Boo
Boo
hoo.
hoo. Oh, look, look, look. It's the dust remains of your parents. I might have to cut that. God damn it. So let's do kid ranking. What is
Mhm.
your opinion on the book as a kid with a rating? And then
Okay,
we'll do it as an adult. Kid,
I thought you
or
meant rank each of the Baudelaire children.
yes, let's also rank the kids, but like after this, yes.
Okay.
And then when we
Um,
then we'll go to the adult discussion, like from the point of POV of an adult. Just this is
right.
just to give everyone a base, like a base for ourselves too.
When when I was a child, I read the books out of
For a
order
while.
because yeah, when I first read them, it was completely out of order. I started with book three, and then like seven, book 10, and it like flipped around because it was based on what book my library had. Um,
Same.
so I don't reading the first like this book as a child, I was like, yeah, it's just another series of unfortunate events books. I didn't really like understand the gravitas of this being like the first one, this being like the inciting incident.
hmm
Um,
It was just
because
like,
I was
oh,
just like
cool, that's what happened.
I already knew how so much of the story would play out. Like I knew no one was gonna die. Like none of the main children were gonna die.
hmm
Count Olaf was gonna eventually get away somehow and be a nuisance in the future. So I think that
Nuisance.
had a nuisance, a problem, thorn in the side, if you will.
Thorn in my side. I don't think so.
Mhm. No, no, no. So I think that so rereading the whole series from like the beginning and like in
hmm
order, I think will be interesting for me.
Okay.
As as an adult Kale, I'm hit by things that I didn't expect to like affect me that
hmm
much. Like when they're talking to Mr. Poe and Violet's like, he hit Klaus, and and Mr. Poe is like, that's just how some people raise their kids. I was like, oh
In local
damn.
parentis,
Oh.
bro, I don't know what to tell you. Like the law, I'm a
I was
banker.
like I had to put the book down for a minute and I was like, I think that would fuck with me the way that it did. And it's like
Oh yeah, same.
I think like how I talked about just having a different perspective on how young these children are and like being expected to like Violet as a
hmm
14-year-old being expected to basically be a mother to her two siblings.
Which I'm sure you could relate to a bit, right? Because you have a younger
Yeah.
sibling.
Yeah, I have a little
Yeah.
brother.
When I was 14, and I'm like, I wouldn't know what the fuck to do. I
Right.
have zero skills,
And like that's like the other
and also just
what
your life at
more
that time. I think is what you were
right.
saying.
Yeah. Yeah, more with like future books where it's like I can't imagine doing this at 14, at 12, at baby, however old Sunny is.
hmm
Mhm.
Baby is baby.
What are you baby baby? Tell me your thoughts.
Oh. My thoughts. So,
Mhm.
as a kid, I just thought that the books looked really cool. And I was like, a series of unfortunate events. Ooh. And it was like, oh, this one has like a lot of books in it. And I think the ones at the school had like the cool things. So I'd either see them at like the book fair or whatever. And my
Mhm.
mom would take us to like we do a lot of like the Barnes and Noble library where you just go and hang out and read all
Yeah.
day and then don't get any books. Um,
Mhm.
and they won't kick you out because it's reading, unless they catch you. That being said, um, I really loved the series overall. I mean, I got a tattoo of it. I got the Count Olaf eye on my ankle, which is cool.
Mhm.
But it what really enticed me about the series because I read it for the most part in order, and then there's books like I haven't read. So like, I think it's like book 11 that I've never read. Um,
Okay.
there's like a whole book I just never read, which is exciting because I'm like,
That'll
okay,
be
cool,
exciting.
yeah. Or
Yeah, I
maybe I
can't wait till we
did
get to
go
that.
back, but I can't remember. The end is my favorite. It's just
Yeah.
it's hard not to be.
I think we're gonna have the most to say about the first book and the last
Yes,
book. Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, all the foundation of like building everything up, like everything just seems so unfair. But I always tried to see like the good in things, and like as a kid, I would be like, there's a lot of like they got so lucky. Like good thing Klaus was like smart because he could like figure this out, and like because they knew what the plan was, they knew that they could come up with a way. Like
Right.
and like as a kid, and maybe there's a little bit of that like optimism
Mhm.
that I don't necessarily feel as an adult. That it's just like
A little childhood innocence that we've maybe lost along the way.
it's like, yeah, man, like no, it's great that you got out of that position, but you shouldn't have been in that position in the first place.
Right. Like,
So,
I'm glad your abusive, like, guardian didn't kill you. You should never have been put in the care of someone abusive.
mhm,
Like, yeah.
yeah, just the Mr. Pop. Let's okay. So, how do we want to how do we want to transition to like actually talking about the book? The book. Do we want to like brief overview of the story, or do you want to like do we just kind of go like the beginning parts, or how do you want to just we could just kind of go for it?
Let's just go for it. Let's just
Okay.
let's just talk about what we want to talk about. If people can't follow, suck it nerds, I guess. Read the
Mm-hmm.
book.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Suck it, nerds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for a book about a really shitty day,
Right.
I find it the opening scene of this series never really did much for me. I never really cared.
hmm
Or like not that I didn't care, but like it's like that really sucks. But like let's get to the shenanigans.
There's so many like important and like memorable like set pieces almost
Mm-hmm.
in this series where it's like, and it really does only get worse from
Like
here.
I
So
don't
it
care about
almost,
Bridey Beach.
right, it feels
Sorry.
like the opening scene is a little bit overshadowed by things to come. And I think that's, poignant and impactful to be like finding out that you lost both of your parents, not the worst thing that's ever happened to you, not by a long shot.
Oh, it's that's such like a crazy realization to have too.
hmm
Of just like this knowing. Like this time
Right.
around reading it, like I don't know if it's just because like I've gotten older and like, I've started to like think about loss and death more often and kind of like trying
hmm
to like, come to terms with it and whatnot because then it gets easier to talk about and then it doesn't like, weigh you down as much. But like, like these books kind of helped with honestly. Though these kids
hmm
never truly were given the proper space and comfort to grieve and grow, and that's aside the point. Like he's got money for
hmm
therapy. Like those kids like woke up that day, did like their normal routine. Like it's on days of loss that we always like question like things that we do, and I think that
hmm
like it's not really touched on too much, but like there's like hints of that messaging in the way that he writes that's what kind of started to make me feel like there's coded messages. There's some VFD symbology for those
Right,
for
right,
those of
right.
us who are rereading as adults. Like, or maybe that's
And
just the brain doing it, but it's fun. It's
yeah,
interesting.
it's crazy because like because they're so young, this is almost certainly their first time dealing with death. Like
Hmm.
Sunny for sure, but this is probably the first time they've had to like grapple with the loss of losing a loved one, and like like you said, they aren't really given the best conditions to do that in.
Mm-mm. It's like, oh, place of good memories is now
Hmm.
like the one place that you then also realize as soon as you realize that the house is burnt down is that there one other place that was safe and still had like memories that were good is now forever tainted because that's where you found out. You know, like it'll
Yeah.
always be associated with the beach. And like that's a really fucked up thing. I'm sorry to drop something so heavy, but like it feels crazy to not acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
something as an adult that I get that I'm like that is like a like that is a truly unfortunate event. Like it's only as an adult that I see truly how unfortunate these events were.
Yeah. I had a thought about that, of like the title, where it implies a level of just like bad, or not bad fortune, because that's literally what it's saying, but like there's no malice implied.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, well, this is, it's what could be done about it. And I
These are not the
feel that way
luckiest
towards,
kids. These are the unluckiest
right.
kids. Their
And it's,
unluck is what makes them survive to deal with it more.
mhm. And I think that's such an interesting way of like looking at it, especially in like children's media, where it's like usually you have to overcome like one big bad guy
Mm-hmm.
in like a children's book, and then the world is saved. And it's like, even if there was no Count Olaf, these kids would still be fucked. Like, it'd still be,
They are
yeah,
the as much like Count Olaf is very much meant to be the physical stand-in villain. He is the villain.
right.
He, as the books go on, is an absolute treat, which yeah, I'm so excited to dive into in like a more like
Yes.
intelligent like I'm just smarter than I was when I was a kid, and I'm like this says so many things. Like you can read it so many like I had
Right.
so much interesting commentary. Like he is a villain, but like the truth is that like Mr. Poe is a villain.
Mr. There, yeah, there. One of the things I remembered is like, I think there's a line in the later books that it's like, Mr. Poe means well, but he does about as much good as like a jar of mayonnaise, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, he's he's incompetent. He wishes no malice towards these kids, but he's
Mm-hmm.
just not able to protect them or take care of them or even really be there for them in a way that they need. And it's such an unfortunate thing. And I know later in the books they're like, well, we're not going to go to Mr. Poe because he's a fucking idiot, and
Yeah.
we're better off just dealing with ourselves. And it's sad to get the first like inklings of that in this book, of just being like, he doesn't care. He can't help us because he just isn't able to help us.
It I think like I personally really like I felt like I noticed the exact same thing and the exact same call. It's like this now Mr. Poe isn't just like oh he's just a dumb bank guy who like he plays by the rules and he's like well I can't
Hmm.
technically do anything and it's like you can but like why don't you? Is that it's
Right.
like no that's like almost like a deep cut of like the system of
Hmm.
like bubbling idiocy of like when in just a general sense that I feel like we can all relate to like being a hurt kid at some point like in whatever capacity and like talking to people like you know, stuff I've been dealing with lately where I'm like you know talking to some people who like don't like already understand it
Right.
really it evokes a lot of the same feeling of like oh well you know like I'm surely not that bad like you know it's just doing whatever and it's like okay until like his
Yeah.
like until Poe sees it then he does something but like
Yeah.
the like never being believed as a kid or like you're just blowing it out of proportion and gaslighting yourself has such like a negative impact on your self-esteem as you grow up. I mean like I personally it really struck a chord for me and I'm like
Right.
this is the
No,
epitome of that
I've
the
definitely
embodiment.
been there where it's like I was a kid and I needed something from like adults in my life, and they were just like, well, we can't help you because you, like, for whatever reason, like our hands are
XYZ.
tied in this situation. Yeah. And so, best of luck. And it's luck is clearly not enough.
No, it's not. How could it be?
Not, yeah.
It's hopes and prayers. I'm sorry to say it.
And
It's that same concept like of like I'm doing so much for you it's like hey but like you say you like would help if like people when people really need help, it's not like if you go
Hmm.
and be like, hey, like, if you need any help with anything, let me know. Like when you're overwhelmed, you don't want to have to like think of what to give
Right.
somebody. You just like you should just do something. It doesn't even have to be
Literally
related to their
anything.
problems. Go, hey, I made you a cake. Here you go.
Right. I felt very similarly to Justice Strauss in this book, where it's
Hmm.
like she maybe means well, she maybe believes it when she says I'll do anything for these kids, but she just fundamentally isn't able to help them in the way that they need and isn't
Hmm.
able to, and because they're children, doesn't believe them when they need to be believed.
No, and as well as just being oblivious in of themselves. Easily
Right.
flattered. I feel like it screams of like immature adults. Like maybe I don't know how. I feel like you and I relate a lot in terms of like kind of like how we
Yeah.
grow up and stuff. So I think you'll resonate with this. But it always felt like as a kid, like because of the way that I was raised, and you guys taught me, and I was taught everything. Like felt like I was pretty good at like seeing through things. Like I'm like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like shit's like scamming. So I've been scammed before. It's not always perfect, but sometimes I get like a feeling, and I'm just like I don't know.
I
Like
also think
I
it's
don't want to be negative, but also like
the same energy of sitting like a 12-year-old at like the kids' table because I think as you get older, you kind of forget what it's like to be a kid and how much you
mm,
knew and how smart kids are. Like I spend a lot of time like babysitting and stuff, and I'm always like shocked when a kid says something like really like poignant or intelligent. And it's like I think
mm,
you forget what it's like to be a kid, and you're just like, well, everyone under the age of 18 is like kind of like a 6-year old, so I'll just like throw on cartoons and it'll be fine. Where
yeah.
it's like they don't treat them with the maturity and the kind of like
Mm,
weight they deserve.
yeah. Like they're not talking to them like an adult or like another person.
Right.
It's not a matter of age. It's just like
It's a
you
matter
are
of
agency.
personhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you don't believe me because I'm a kid. Like, and the problem is that
Mhm.
what we then do is we extrapolate that into life because like
Yeah.
I'm 30 and I still feel like I'm a kid, like,
Mhm.
which is wild because like you're much younger than me, but like I'm
Correct.
like, oh no no no, but like I get along with all the kids, so like because I'm the cool uncle, you know and with my
Yeah.
mustache now, and
Mhm.
I still don't feel like an adult necessarily. And it's like a lot of that
Mhm.
is because it's like, yeah, like you're like, don't speak up or say anything because like you're just causing a problem. You're just causing issues. Like, what? No, no, no. It's not that bad. Like, they're in charge. I don't know what to tell you. It's like, you could just say that, like, that sucks. That you shouldn't have to deal
Yeah.
with that. Like, if you don't want to do something about it, that's fine. But you could just give me the confidence to do something about it.
Mhm.
That's real support. And that's something that you're not getting from Mr. Poe. That's something that you're not getting
No,
from Justice Strauss.
it's not what you're getting from Mr. Poe. What are you gonna get from Mr. Poe? A couple of wet coughs. That's it.
That's it. She wanted to just let them live with her. Miss Poe's like, oh no 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 no,
It has to
absolutely
be
not.
someone you're related to, which again, I wonder if they'll touch back on this in other books, because I know for a fact they end up in places not with relatives.
Hmm. I believe at one point it stops being they stop they're done with relatives
It's
because
like
they're on the adventure
not
at that point.
not to break into other books. It's like they end up at a sawmill at one point, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't remember if the guy who owns the sawmill is like their distant cousin or whatever. He just makes them work at the sawmill anyways. But like I don't know. At some point, it feels like it would be at least nice to reference Justice Strauss again and be like, although I guess it makes sense to be like for her to not want the kids after like
I know a few days have
events
passed.
happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, more like if she finds out like your other caregivers have all been murdered by her next door neighbor, maybe she wouldn't want the kids anymore, and that's a reasonable decision to make.
That's true. I mean, it's also
Hmm.
possible that the kids to just internalize that when they were told no, like they
Yeah,
don't ever get to go back and ask again.
yeah.
you know?
That's fair. That's a good way
No.
of looking at it. Or like an interesting way, not
Yeah, like
necessarily
that's a way that I'm
positive.
interpreting it. Yeah, like no, it's not positives, but it's like an interesting observation that it's like, yeah,
Hmm.
like so that sounds really like smell my own fire. It's like it's an interesting observation. No, I get what you mean. I get what
I
you
have
mean.
made a smart
Oh,
observation.
interesting point. The level of adults who just hate kids, don't want anything to do with kids,
Yeah.
still take these kids. The sheer level of child abuse. Oh, my
Honestly,
dad's calling. I'm gonna have to.
oh, how exciting. I completely forgot that Count Olaf was an actor and all of his henchmen are like, at least in
Hmm,
theory,
an acting
his
troupe.
fellow actors. And I was, and that really, that gave me the giggles. I was like, again, thinking of things to come. I'm like, this guy's just like, he wanted to perform Shakespeare in the Park and now he's got legit beef with the 7-year-old or whatever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like he's. What do you do?
Yeah.
I used to dream of doing Shakespeare in the Park. What do you do now? I'm in a
What do you do now?
submarine hunting for a baby. I'm looking for orphans for their fortune.
I Count Olaf seems to hate Sunny, like in specific, like so much. And that
Hmm.
is so funny to me, just thinking that this man has like beef with a baby.
I mean,
Like,
baby bites.
baby bites. She does, but it's not an excuse to hate an infant.
That's true, but I think hating an infant is a more redeemable quality of his. To be honest, I hate to do it to him, but it
You're
do
like,
feel
he's
like
just
it.
like me for real, for real.
Yeah, for real, for real, for real. Absolutely.
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
been resized.
resized. Gosh, okay, so like I didn't realize as a kid how much abuse and violence in this book. Like,
Yeah.
just
Not
smacks the
not to
kid.
not to get too deep into it. When I was a kid, I was reading it, and a lot of the stuff that happens, I was like, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
okay, just like everybody. Yeah, this is what everyone
Mm,
goes through. And then I read it again
yeah.
as an adult, and I was like, hmm, maybe that should have been a red flag for for
Yeah.
me that I
You,
found Count Olaf a little bit relatable as a
mhm.
caregiver.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Not me having a very deep existential crisis about my own tattoo now and the
Hmm.
implications of it. Oh no.
Yeah.
Yay! No, but it's just no, it's just more of a reference to the series because it's fun.
Yeah. There's not
Mhm.
really any other series of unfortunate event tattoo to get. Like,
Yeah. No. Like you get sunny on your tummy or something, I don't know.
hmm,
That'd just be weird and nasty. Klaus with
a
his big
burnt house
glasses.
on your thigh.
Hmm. Actually, that'd be kind of cool. How the bank just lets everything happen is just like
Yeah.
even as a kid when I
Specifically,
read this, I felt like I'm like, no, like sometimes it's just shitty like this and it's not fair. When especially when they're like, well, you're supposed to. It's regulated and it's like not well.
not, yeah, clearly it's not, the regulations in place aren't working. Well, like as a kid, I guess I didn't really grasp the concept of like a whole house being like dirty and disrepair. And I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, I guess like I have stuff all over my room. Like, okay, it's like that. And it's like, no. Where it's like I didn't have the proper like scale in
Hmm.
mind, I guess, and the proper like framework to understand like this is an unsafe living environment for kids. Also, like just a weird niche thing where it's like you're not allowed in a certain part of the house. Where it's
Oh,
like
yeah,
that's a huge red flag that I was just like, yeah, yeah, okay.
yeah,
And
we weren't allowed in the office.
yeah, I wasn't, yeah,
That was stuffed with
whatever.
papers, like hoarder style. It was yeah.
Hmm.
Damn!
And
Yay!
like specifically the part where they have to cook dinner and they're like, I don't I can make toast, I guess. I don't even know
Hmm.
where to start. That I
I've
found I
never
was
even
like,
been shown
damn.
how to like start.
I don't know how to turn on an oven like
Hmm.
safely.
I
I don't
don't
know how
know
to
what I'm
handle
doing. I
knives.
don't know what to
Yeah.
expect, so I'm just afraid.
And it's like, well, maybe we could find a cookbook. And it's oh, sweet summer child. Like,
Oh man, like you could
that's such
tell
like
that
an
like
innocent,
the voice
naive
almost
thing.
breaking. Like we can find a cookbook. Like that's what we'll do. It's
Yeah.
like that is problem solving, and like I'm so proud of you, but also,
Where it's just that feels like a very like I'm someone who cooks quite a bit. That
mm-hmm,
seems like so naive to me to just assume that any cookbook you grab you can make because they're like the kitchen equipment you need, there's like varying difficulties
mm-hmm.
of like recipes. So just like I'm like a kid would know how to sort through any of that. And so yeah, that made me sad. Like again, that's one of the
Like
things
they're
where it's like that
crying
didn't
through the
phase me as a
tears.
kid.
They're just trying so goddamn hard. They're just I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
make this thing.
Gonna make puttanesca sauce. And then he
Mm-hmm.
hates it.
Because he wants roast beef, which
Yeah,
ooh,
should have said.
never thing
Should
that
have.
he never asked for. I've been talking about it all day. How you making roast beef? Where is it?
Yeah,
I couldn't. I was
that's
maybe so mad.
that was another thing where it's like getting mad at a kid for something you did not ask them to do. I think we talked about this, but in more
Mm-hmm.
relation to like work, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like you can get mad at me for not doing something, but you have to ask. You have to ask me to do something if you want it
Mm-hmm.
done.
Yeah. Like it's a two-way street. I can't read your mind, which is a way of saying like we
Hmm.
need to be more clearly communicate that directly. If that's what you were wanting me to do, make sure you at least have told me in person those words. Like
Right.
otherwise, I'm going to take
And
you at face value. Like you said what you said, so I did it. I don't know.
yeah, and the kids didn't even have the opportunity to communicate because all of his interactions with them are through like notes that he leaves them in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
They had no chance to succeed.
No, well, he didn't want them to.
And then he punished them when they didn't. Yeah. Sorry. Like
No,
Count
no, no.
Olaf becomes horrible in like so many over the top objective ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting to look at him now and just see like you said, like the little details, like the little ticks that he has that makes him truly like heinous.
Mm-hmm. Like you know what he's actually thinking. You've already figured. You know
Right.
his plan.
Right.
Like Al Funcoot,
Mm-hmm. I know. I saw that and I was like, I know what this is.
which is so funny. I didn't realize that that's. I'm like, I was waiting, and then it didn't happen, and I'm like, oh, that's so funny. So that'll be an exciting little
Yeah.
tidbit
That's just for
to
me to
circle
know
back.
because
Yep.
I'm smart.
I remember.
Hmm.
Like these
Yeah.
books are just sad, but like I also
These
kind
books are
of
so sad. They're good. They're like thrilling and
yeah.
so fucking depressing.
I was really excited because like adult like construct like not like critique but like or like view lenses like
Hmm.
view like I find it so interesting seeing things from like feminist lens, Marxist lens, like those different literary lenses of
Right.
critical analysis. But like
Hmm.
you know like how like it's just such a representation of like a futile system or like the American healthcare system of like I no can't help you, can't help you, can't do anything.
And it's like the people in charge, like Mr. Poe. This has just been 30 minutes of us dragging Mr. Poe, where it's like he seems so eager to have his hands clean of these children, where it's like he's like, well, this is just another thing I
Mm,
got to do for work. I got this is another file I have to put away, and it's like this is somebody's life, and like I think a lot of doctors, since we're talking about the medical system,
mhm,
kind of have a tendency to fall into that same kind of thinking where it's like
mm,
this is
mhm.
just another day, and it's like I would appreciate it if you cared a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just a smidge,
Like you just
just a
got like
teeny
just
bit.
remember one silly like just remember a silly thing about
It's more in my mind like I'm a set in like a medical context. Like I'm a set of symptoms,
me.
and that's it. And it's
Yeah, oh,
like I
yeah.
would appreciate being seen as a person.
hmm
Um, just because
Me
I'm
for
sick
me.
doesn't mean I'm not alive and like here in the room with you.
hmm
Just thought,
I like Among Us.
yeah.
Well, just like being valued, like not rushed. Like, why did I have to wait so long to see you for what felt like for so little, and that you made it clear that you
Right.
just wanted like you're so clear and concise that it feels like it's there isn't really room for discussion if I'm trying to ask for clarification. It just kind of feels like you're just mad that I'm wasting your time. And it's like,
Yeah.
but
And
this is what you're
also
supposed to do.
assuming that I'm lying for some reason.
hmm
Like, are you sure that this is what happened? And it's like, yes, I was there. You weren't, Karen. My doctor's name is Karen. That wasn't
Good.
a
Yeah.
Karen joke. I do think it's like as an adult, it's like this is such like a beautifully written book, and it not wasteful. That's not the word I want to use. It's it makes me glad that children still have like really solid like media out
Mhm.
there that's like for kids and like it's like good and not I don't know like YouTube 5 minute finger family or whatever.
Yeah, like the 5 Minute Family, just like
Right.
it's like there's something real. I I to follow up on that point, like with like it being a good solid media. What I really found charming in this that I always appreciated as a kid, and it like I just like saw the value in it now as an adult, is the kindness, care, and respect that the author has for you as the reader.
Yeah.
Like he talks to
Where
you as if you're like a close friend or confidant.
and like at first it kind of feels like the constant being like you don't have to read this comes off as kind of like a stylistic kind of choice, but like over time it really comes to be like this is too much for you to read, you don't have to. Like you should take care of yourself. Like it really comes off as like deep and genuine care for the
Mm-hmm.
reader, which is again a weird thing for a book
Like
to have.
content checkpoints, kind of,
Right.
which like you don't like. I don't know if that was necessarily the intent at the time, but that is what they are now. Like that's what we can
Right. This
recognize
is
them in. It was like, oh, this was before it was like as mainstream
mhm.
or commonplace. Like I in particular found the explanation of words to be
Yeah.
always done like he was letting you in on a secret. Like here's a big word
Yeah.
and I'm gonna tell you what it means.
And like that's such like again, because it's like for kids, that's such like a genuine like a soft moment where it's
You're not being
like
made
a
fun
sweet
of.
little yeah, a sweet little tidbit from the author. And I think like yeah, there were probably words in this book I didn't know the first time I read it. And then I learned something new and I became smarter and had a bigger vocabulary from reading these books.
It's yeah, like that's it. You get the things from the
Mhm.
vat like it makes you
Yeah.
feel confident. You feel good that you're like, ooh, I know a new word and you can like use it. And someone's like, do you even know what that means? And you're like, it means this. And they're like,
It
oh,
means that it does it's a little it's a little interesting because some of the definitions are like kinda where
they're
it's like
cheeky.
contemptuous and it's like a feeling towards Count Olaf and it's like okay that's not really like a great definition for kids but
I think it was
it's
more of
like
like you could already kind of get the like whatever
you
they're
you have the
thinking.
context.
He's like whatever face you think they made, that's
Yeah.
contemptuous.
Yeah.
Just so you know. And it's like, oh, a little treat for me. Who is
Mhm.
she? Who is she? Who is Lemony? Like
Mhm.
I did find on page 109 um there is a really interesting example of him using a big word and then telling a definition. But this time around, he goes, faking here,
Mhm.
is
Oh,
very
yeah.
similar to feigning, which is to mean
Right.
this. And it was like, no, I feel like
It's a
kids would
getcha
know.
gotcha.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I thought it was so clever. I thought it was so well done. It was like a last little one at the end.
Where it's like this simple word, which also means this complex word, and it's the same kind
Oh,
of back and forth, but just reverse. It was good.
it tickles
I
the
agree.
brain.
Mhm.
It's a brain teaser. Like it just like if you feel like you have something. Like all the little
Yeah.
illustrations are really nice. Um,
And
like
I think that's another thing that really helps to personify the author as its own character within the context of the story.
mhm.
As he, yeah, he's the kind of person who, even in writing, takes the time to stop and explain where things might get complex.
Yeah, like he's going to like he's not wasting any time. It's like he knows
Yeah.
he is writing while thinking about how it's being read. Not necessarily how he's
Yeah.
reading it in his head, but like how would someone read this? And it's like, okay,
But I
this like
also,
this is the thing they would be thinking of, so this is the word I'll explain. Or maybe, I don't know.
right. Well, it was kind of what we talked about earlier, where it's like not understanding kids' intelligence and then treating them like they're dumb or naive or whatever. He so very clearly respects the intelligence of the children that are going to be reading these books. He's like, well, I'm not going to dumb down the language. I'm going to use words they might not understand, but I'll include a caveat. I'll include a little definition so that everyone's still on
Mhm.
the same page.
Idea of like, I'm gonna make sure that everyone's good. If you didn't need to know this, then guess what? You're just like, hey, you get to feel good that you already knew it. If you
Hmm.
didn't know what it is, well, now you know, and you don't feel called out. You don't feel singled out because
Right.
kids don't, in like a
No, I
tough
get
little
what you're
South way.
saying.
Um,
It's like when teachers are like, "Raise your hand if you have a question," and it's like, "Well, I'm not gonna raise my hand if no one else does. I don't want to
mhm.
seem like I don't understand if everyone else does." And
I
this
don't
is
want to
just
feel
like,
behind and everyone's dragging.
yeah, this is just a way to be like, just keeping everyone on the same page without calling anyone out. Yeah.
Inclusive.
Hmm.
Who would have thought Lemony Snicket was based? Oh,
I again thinking forward to other books. I think he says some pretty based stuff.
hmm.
I
Absolutely.
think we're only gonna get
I'm
more
kind.
lemony pilled from here.
I'm actually really excited to see like how many ideas am I now seeing in the books where I'm like, huh, like that's cool. I was kind of like I didn't realize it at the time, but like, oh hey, like that's why it resonated is because like I do think like that.
I think they're good books, and I think it still holds up however many years later that I'm
Mhm.
reading it again.
So, do we want to say anything else about the book?
I think the book has big Welcome to Night Vale vibes, where it's
Mhm.
like they feel very similar to me, where it's like crazy stuff happens or like stuff that should be treated as crazy, and everyone's just kind of like, yeah, that's just how it works. There is a
Yeah,
very like ethereal feeling.
it's a very like in the way like in the Bayside Hotel or whatever it is in Control, like an alter like a parallel universe where like it all is wrong but enough of it is right, like it's almost like a dream, but it's like the
Hmm.
worst dream but not in a
Right.
traditional nightmare way.
Yeah, it's just like it's a dream. It has very dream logic, you're right. Also, like, there's just like a lot of little things where it's like the location is never really mentioned. There's a lot of stuff about the setting that's kind of like left up to
Hmm.
interpretation, where it's like he lives on the other side of town. Who knows how far
Yeah,
away that is?
it could be at least a whole kilometer, it could be
It could be at least two steps.
two steps. Well, like
Two steps.
I think a lot of the logic too, it could also be an outward expression of the attitude of the adults in the series where there is no like there's never any like pushback on things from the adults. It's always from the kids
Right.
engaging. The adults never push
Right.
back of like Kalaloff said no, everything's fine. They're like, well, children, everything seems fine. Like
Yeah, like
that, like
he
because of
literally
that, that's why things just don't make like they are weird and it feels like it shouldn't be real.
like Cadillac marries Violet, who is like legally his daughter, and he's like, "This is the law. It's fine. You signed an official document." That's another thing where it's like it feels very like whimsical. It's like in this community, these are the marriage
Mhm.
laws. But
Which is also like, oh, how convenient, how local theater energy, which
right,
I guess is also the case, but like a local theater is the creation of the books. Like,
right,
it's very fun.
and
Well,
like he marries his daughter, and everyone's like, "I guess that's okay." Like he said it was okay. It's
mhm.
I don't think it is okay, actually. And I think the judge has the right to interpret the law to be like, no, you cannot
Mhm.
marry your daughter under false pretenses.
That's also
That's not
against the law.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I think that it's not that they had a problem that they because that was something that I made a point of to note in the book because I remembered it that like no one cared that they were getting married. It's like no.
Right.
No one cared that they were getting married because it was just a play. The whole thing is that the second that the scheme gets revealed, like he revels in the fact that he wasted everyone's time. The moment it's signed, he's
Mm-hmm.
like, the play is done, shut everything down, which is hysterical. He,
Yeah, good mood. So funny.
Count Olaf is villain like goals. Like
Yeah, he probably didn't even bother to write the end of the play. He's like, and then they get married, and then I win.
yeah, I'm done. I have it, and then we're gonna go, and like be
Yeah,
done with it. But like when they realize, like, whoa, you just like made it so that everything that just happened, you legally, we see that you did the loophole. The logic makes sense. Like you can't do this. That's not fair. Someone should call the police. Like
yeah,
that's like you can't do that. Like they don't agree with it, but they don't agree with it because they refuse to see or acknowledge the kids who are telling them that it's this other way. They're like, you're just being conspiracy or whatever, which is
right.
more in
And
the later books, but still. Sorry.
it still takes Violet being like, well, I wrote it with my left hand and not my right
Mm-hmm.
hand for them to be like, this marriage is invalid. Where
Mm-hmm.
it feels like
They could have
maybe
said it
that point should
before.
have come a little sooner, being like, no, just you got married in the setting of a play, not the setting of a wedding. It's not the same thing. Those are different social spheres and they have different rules.
They really did kind of just accept that, like, oh, like they're actually married. Like, well, that sucks for you, but like he got you by the
Yeah,
law. They didn't, like, not a single person questioned it.
yeah, that's my point. Like,
Like exact, yeah. I see where you're coming from now. Yeah, absolutely.
I've already been told that it's one way, and that's the end of that.
Mhm. Yeah,
So I guess that's how it is.
if that's just the way it is, it's just the way it is. I guess is
Yeah.
there something we can do about it. Cool. I love this for me. My house is gone.
Hmm. My house is gone. I'm
Mhm.
married to Count Olaf,
I have
and
ugly
that's just
clothes,
it.
and they have
Yeah.
ugly clothes the whole time. I forgot about
And they
that.
have ugly clothes. No drip. Throughout this entire series, they have zero pizzazz.
They do have pizzazz when she specifically uses the ugliest of the clothes to make
Yeah.
the escape down the tower that you guys can see over there, past Count
Nope.
Olaf.
Oh,
Oh yeah, because they dangle a
yeah,
baby
the
from the
tower.
tower that apparently no one else can
Right.
see.
That apparently is just, yeah. I wouldn't say it's fine. That's untrue. People are upset about Sunny being dangled from a tower. But like
Yeah,
none of his associates are. It's the other thing where it's like these actors are just unflinchingly loyal to Count Olaf and his abuse of these children. And it's very strange.
they are literally threatening to like dismember these kids, or
And they're all just like, cool, I guess.
yeah, like no, like these are just the people you associate with, and these are the people that Mr. Poe's like, it's fine.
Yeah, he can have these people around the house, around the kids.
Well, it's with the family because it's we're abiding by the will.
Hmm. Also, just like the inciting incident of your parents wanted you to live with your closest relative, and he lives just a couple blocks away. And like that's another thing where it's like that feels like such dream logic to be like, clearly that means, stay with your
Yeah,
aunt, your
like
uncle,
whoever is the next
grandparents,
closest like living relative that you have an emotional
right?
relationship to.
Who's already
Like if it's not your
like hitched
parent,
their
it's your
horse to this way,
uncle. Yeah.
right? And Mr. Poe just being like, no, it's like physical distance.
Like although he is technically your like third cousin four times removed or fourth cousin third three times removed, he is also the closest physically to you. It's like
Hmm.
great.
Cool.
I love this for me.
Do you want to close out with our ranking of each of the orphans?
Yes, I had that written down so that we wouldn't forget. Did you write it down? Or you just
No,
remember?
I just remembered.
Okay,
I
cool.
just,
Okay.
mm.
All right, so how do we want to? So there's three kids. There's Sunny,
There's three kids.
Violet, and Klaus.
Hmm.
Claus.
Sunny is the youngest. She's a baby. Klaus is the middle child and the only boy.
Smart girl.
Violet is the oldest.
And smart girl. Well, they're actually all
Smart
intelligent.
girl.
Inventor.
They're all explain it yourself with these children. Violet's like an inventor. She makes crafts and makes a grappling hook at one point in this book. Klaus reads and seems to like have a very strong memory of everything he reads. Um, and he finds out Olaf's plan being to marry Violet, and Sunny bites
Yeah, she babbles, and nobody knows what she's talking about, but there is a translation for the
Yeah.
reader only.
Well, it seems to be that the Klaus and Violet understand Sunny to like some degree. Maybe it's in like later books or something, like very relatable, where it's like my brother will mumble something and my mom's like, "What did you say?" And I have to be like, "Oh, I said this. How did you not understand?" That's
Hmm.
that I found that very relatable to be like, I'm the only one who understands like my siblings babbling.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Hell yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so the
Rank the
kids.
orphans.
Are we, on the scale of what?
Um, how about let's just do favorite to least favorite
In this book?
in this book. In the
Uh,
context of this book, one, two, three.
it's got to be Violet, Klaus, Sunny.
I think you're right. I think that's the
Yeah.
only way. Violet is like so strong. She does so much. She's like willing to marry Count Olaf in order to keep her siblings safe. W Violet. Klaus, very good, very smart. Sunny, Sunny there.
Sunny is probably going to be a one for the first half of these books because she's one. So
She's a
like,
baby.
like,
She's got no personality. She needs to be carried most places.
ooh, but she is the goat with the mycelium
The whom? Oh,
in the
yes,
diver
yes.
helmet. Yeah, it's right. It's so good. Um,
Yes.
I love all three of the kids because they all feel like, although they are very much just like fast, it's like, yes, he's book smart, whatever. It didn't feel like the same copy paste sort of characters, even in just the context of the first book. Like, no,
Yeah.
Klaus is shown to be intelligent. He's also shown to be afraid. He's also shown to be brave. Like the author shows beneath the facade of like, yay, they can do anything. It's like, no, you get to see them be worried and see their thought process and see how they're thinking about things. And like, I'm gonna try all night because like I got nothing else I can do so except try.
He also like he speaks very like realistically, I think. Like Klaus specifically is like, "Oh, I read a book on that." Like and that, like, that's all he has to add to the conversation. That feels very real to me to be like a kid and being like, da 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 sharks. And it's like, I love sharks. I read a book about sharks. And then everyone else is
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, okay, kid.
It's like, sorry, I just
And
got
like,
excited because I was so excited to learn about
mhm.
sharks.
It's like he's not portrayed in the same way I think a lot of book smart characters are, where it's like he doesn't know all the answers. We don't get to see him perform well like in school. We
Mm-hmm.
don't we don't get to see people be like, "Well, you know everything, so what's the answer?" to him, and I think that's very refreshing.
He is very much so. He is the book smart kid, but he's also very aware of his limits. He
Yeah,
doesn't like view himself negatively for his limits. It's like,
and I think that Klaus being kind of like brave and scared comes very like realistically, where he like he talks back to Count Olaf, and he gets fucking hit, and then
yeah.
he spends the rest of the book scared that he's gonna get hit again, and it's like, yeah, we've we've seen that Count Olaf is not just talk when he's like, "Fuck you
Oh
kids
yeah.
up if you keep misbehaving." He's going to hit these kids, and that's something that's like valid to be afraid of.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I don't remember if we ever find out who actually did it, but I believe like the feeling that I had when I was a kid was that like I wonder if Count Olaf burnt their house because like he was the closest relative. Like that would make the most
Yeah.
sense. Is that like he just wanted their money and so just did all this. But like I don't
Yeah, I
remember
don't
who
remember.
actually did it.
I don't remember. I think it has something to do with like VFD stuff,
It
like
probably
later
with
in
the
the
sugar
books.
bowl and the schism.
Probably,
Yeah.
probably. That sounds right. So we'll get there.
I'm not gonna lie, I felt so cool just name dropping those right now because like
Yeah.
I've never been able to, and it only feels right in this context.
It
Like,
only
yeah,
feels cool when we're talking about the books.
talking about the books is cool when you get to talk about the books. It's my favorite part about
Yeah.
talking about the books.
Which is again why I think we're gonna have the most to say about the first and the last, because
Hmm.
it's like the first is setting up so much and reminding us so much of the things to come. and then the end
Mhm.
we'll finally get to like look back and piece everything together. And in the middle books, it's gonna be like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Tune in next time. I think the orphan ranking was a good place to end.
Hmm. And that'll be
Maybe we'll do that for each book.
each book, like the ranking tier list of like, or just like, how it's, let's grade the orphans on the report card.
Hmm.
Right
Right,
now, like you get 3 points for a 1, 2 points for a 2, 1 point for a 1. And we'll see who's the
right.
best orphan.
Okay.
So that may, I don't know, maybe we'll see. But
We'll
uh,
see if that holds up.
yeah, well, this will be fun. I'm excited to talk about it more. So,
Yeah,
all right, see you
I had
guys.
fun.
Thank you so much, Kale, for helping me. I hope you guys all have a foreboding evening. Bye.